So it's Sam, and I'm talking about the new moon in Capricorn that we have February 11th. You see all these planets in Capricorn. I'm going to talk about what we can expect for the next month. We see Mars up here in Aries. So check this out. So, as you see, we have this new moon in Capricorn that's coming up here February 11th. That's in a couple days. I'm recording this on February 9th at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So, this new moon is going to happen. Again, the new moons are when the sun and moon come together, we start a new cycle. This is the annual cycle that we're all, living under. The first new moon of the year was in January 12th, and that was really, if you remember, I said this is really like the start of the year, was the one on January 12th. This is like the second new moon of the year. It's kind of like really like the second month of this year. And so, again, this is very important. Wherever it happens in your chart is also quite important. And this is, part of that annual cycle that we have each year, as I said. And one of the things I wanted to also let you know about, just real quick, as you see it scrolling along the bottom, if you did want to get a quick update for 2021, where you're at in your dasha cycles, where the upcoming planetary transits are, how they affect you this year, you can get a quick forecast. I have this 30-minute 2021 tune-up, and I'll look at your chart, look at your dashas, look at the things that are really coming up for you right now in your life. You can write me a quick note about what's happening, but in general, I'll just do a recording, and you can see how all of this will affect you this year. And again, it's pretty easy. Just go ahead and register, and I'll, you give me a couple weeks. I'll allow 2 weeks for it to be finished, and I'll go ahead and do that. But, it's definitely something where we want to be aligned with what's happening, and this is one of the best ways to do it, is to get a quick update at the beginning of the year. And so right now, as I say, we're looking at this new moon and this cycle that will be happening here in Capricorn. Now, of course, Capricorn is a sign ruled by Saturn. So there's a lot of intensity and concentration and seriousness that we will have at this time. So we're seeing it now. A lot of, again, having to concentrate, having to focus, having to organize things internally. Capricorn is where we can feel that pressure, right? And so this Capricorn cycle is going to be a time where that will be the sort of primary lesson. And again, wherever that house falls for you, wherever Capricorn falls, is also very important. Like if you're a Taurus person, that's your 9th house. That's where you take things really seriously and concentrate. If you're Pisces, for example, that's the 11th house. So that's another consideration. But in general, this is a time to really introspect, to grow up, and to be mature about things. Capricorn energy is very much about maturity, concentration, being a grown-up. And instead of worrying about things that we can't control, for example, we learn that the only thing we really can control is our own responses to things, our own reactions, and our own fears and stresses and worries, particularly externally. So, for example, Scorpio is a sign where we have a lot of imagined fears, where we might feel kind of like a paranoia about things that we can't control. For example, jealousy is like a paranoia because it's something that's imagined, right? And we sort of conflate it. But Capricorn is more about the tangible things like money and health and time, how much time we have left on Earth, and that we're getting older and our physical body breaking down. Again, it's not an imagined fear like, oh, maybe they're cheating on me, or maybe there's a conspiracy where the government is trying to do this work. Those things have more to do with like Scorpio kind of energy, at least that sign. And again, both of the signs, Scorpio and Capricorn and other signs, they all have a divine purpose, right? It's not just that Scorpio is about paranoia. It's also about going deeper into things and then channeling that into something that's very devotional and very grounded and, again, having the courage to face it. The same is true with Capricorn. It's more about the tangible fears and the tangible worries of the world. Again, because we know we only have so much time, that's Saturn, and we know that the time we have left, that we have to concentrate and focus and bring that time into the present moment, and we feel it right now. And this is really what Saturn gives us. It gives us the implementation and the pressure to actually walk the talk, not just think about it. So there's a lot of reckoning right now with people, a lot of reckoning around the world with the implications and the gravitas and the results of a lot of ideas and beliefs that we've had and a lot of things that we've been thinking about lately. A lot of the big idea, oh, this is what's going on, this is going on. We're feeling a lot of the consequences right now. And consequences are a big Saturn theme and a big Capricorn theme. And again, I'm not going to get political in this at all, but we could see even what's starting right now in the next couple of days is we're seeing literally, like in the U.S., we're seeing the beginning of the second impeachment trial, where all of the implications of all those things that were said, especially since the election in the U.S., where based on no evidence at all, the former president just kept whipping people up into this frenzy. And eventually they stormed the Capitol and he's being held to account for it. And again, that's very Capricorn energy, where we might think we get away with things. We might think there's no consequences for things that we say or do, but there's are consequences, and they come to bear at a certain point. And so everyone's consequences are up right now. The truth of what you've done and said, and how those things are going to shape the future, your future. Again, we can see it as a country and as a world. That's not the only consequences, by the way. There's a lot of things like this around the world. I've been talking lately about what's happened in Russia with Navalny and around the world with other kinds of, situations. There's situations in India, for example, like with Modi, and all around the world. A lot of these consequences. We had a coup in Myanmar. There's a lot of things going on right now where there's a lot of pressure to be held to account. Now, again, I'm not going to get into this isn't a world prediction kind of thing, but it's we can talk about and see these things on a larger scale. And again, this is what looking at the social events, this is how it can help us, because we can then bring this into our own life. What are the consequences of this in your own life? Again, ideas that you have and philosophies about things and the words you have said and the beliefs that you've been putting out there and the things that you've put out there that you maybe didn't understand what the consequences would be or are, and now those consequences are really showing up. That pressure is it's being revealed. Something is being reflected back to you right now, and it might be difficult. It might be a hard reflection to look at. You might have gotten some really difficult, painful truths that show a level of reality that you weren't aware of. And again, with all this Capricorn energy and Saturn energy, it's very easy for us to want to remain immature and childish about it and be like, oh, that's not nice. You're being mean. And again, when you talk about things like death and consequences and seriousness and you need to grow up and whatnot, a lot of people they don't like when I talk about this stuff. They're like, oh, well, that's not very nice. Well, that's not very, nice to hear. Oh, that's so heavy. Oh, look, I'm a lighthearted guy as well. I love to have fun. It's all I do in my life is have fun. That's all I want to do, just like everybody else. I just want to enjoy life, just like everybody else. But these things, this nature of Saturn is to make us grow up and face the truth. And facing the truth is actually also not that heavy. Like when I was mocking, going, "Oh, that's not fun." I'm actually mocking that whole idea because it's really not true. There's nothing unfun about taking things seriously. We don't have to take everything seriously, but there are things we need to take seriously, like wasting time or showing up or looking at the nature of things and not remaining childish. Remaining childish doesn't mean that we, when I say that people are remaining childish, I just mean remaining childish about the things we need to face and acknowledge, which is, again, that we're not just this limited body. All these limited ideas and opinions are just that we engage in a lot of bad thinking and misguided ideas, and eventually reality smashes them. And this is really what Saturn is about, particularly Capricorn. Capricorn comes after Sagittarius to shatter our illusions, because Sagittarius has a lot of those illusions, a lot of those hopes and those beliefs and those things we hope are going to work out. So again, it's great that we have hopes and beliefs, but unless we take those hopes and beliefs and test them and turn them into commitments, then they can just remain very immature. So that's really what Capricorn is. It comes after Sagittarius to take those beliefs and those hopes and make them tempered, almost like you take steel and you have to temper it. You have to make it strong. You have to make it hard and tested through time, especially. It's the test of time. That's the big test, the test of time. The test of time. How does it stand up to the test of time? The only real test there is. And that's what's going on right now, is we are seeing our ideas and our life and the decisions we've made and whatnot, and how it's all measuring up to the test of time. And the pressure of time bearing down and saying, again, how are you spending your time now? How are you going to be spending it moving forward? Because we also have a lot of time on our hands, a lot more time, particularly because we've been dealing with COVID and lockdowns and other kinds of things. And again, we're having to really look at our fears and our ideas around these things, and to stay compassionate around those things. And again, looking at the limitations, looking at our previous decisions, again, because a lot of our current and our present situation comes from our past situation. Again, it's not to be political, but here, let's say in the US, we just moved to a different, presidency or whatnot. There's still a lot of momentum from the last one. We're still dealing with all of the stuff that happened, especially as it relates to responses to like COVID or other kinds of things. There's still so much momentum from the past effort and neglect, or what they did well or what they didn't do well, that, again, trying to get our bearings and move in a new direction takes a little bit of time. Some people might think it's not the right direction. Whatever it is, time has a momentum to it. So certain things have a momentum, other things, regardless of external circumstances, internal circumstances are always right now. Because no matter how we look at time as the past and the future, hang on a second, I'm going to take this off. Look at this. This is my armband. Speaking of time, this is actually, I've developed a little bit of tennis elbow playing so much tennis, and this is a wrap that has a cold compress in there, and it's starting to get a little bit itchy, so I had to take it off. But this is one of my things with the Saturn, right, is cold. Saturn is cold, and I'm starting to get a little bit of repetitive tennis elbow a little bit here. So this is part of my Capricorn Saturn stuff, right? Getting a little older, so I'm having to put a lot of cold on the arm. Test of time and how time has been wearing out my arm. I'm not going to live forever. So I needed to, so I've been doing some of that. This is how some of it is showing up in my life, right? But so the thing is that how we are responding to time, externally, there's circumstances, but internally, time is timeless. On the spiritual level, time is actually timeless. And it means that when you withdraw from the world, you enter timelessness. And this is where Saturn is the liberator, because it means that the world of time is external and it's in the mind. Karma is literally time, and time is actually past and future. That's what time is. Time is past, which we can't change, and future, which is not here yet. And we're in the middle, and when we're living in time through the mind and our karma, we're restless. Restlessness comes from time because time is not real. It's only real in the mind, but the mind is not real. Karma is not real. None of that is real. It's created. It's created by karma and the illusion that we are just this being who is living through time and living through karma. And the mind feels real, but it's not real. I talked about this previous video where the mind is an illusion, where, again, peace of mind and calming the mind is actually an illusion, because I actually related the story that my guru Amma said that the mind is not even real. It's just a creation that we believe in. It's like a crowd of thoughts that happen so fast that we think there's actually something there, but it's not. So the mind reflects on the past, projects toward the future, and we miss the present. Because the present moment is not time. It's timeless and it's eternal. But we live in time. We live in past and future, and we miss the present. And past and future creates stress. And we feel that stress with Saturn. Saturn is that stress, that pressure of time, all those regrets, those things I didn't do, the people that were mean to me, and we try to forgive all of the stuff of the past. Or we feel guilty, all the regrets, all the mistakes we made. I feel guilty about the things I've done. I feel angry at the things that were done to me, blah, 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 the past. But then the future. Well, what do I do next? What do I do next? Where is it all leading? Where is it all leading? Well, it's leading to my death. Well, God, I don't like that. I don't want to think about death. Oh my God. But the older I get, the more it's obvious. The more I feel aches and pains in my arms and in my body and in my limbs. It's inevitable. So regrets about the past, stress about the future. And all Saturn is doing is saying, stop obsessing over the outer world and the world of form and go inward. And it's not just saying to do that. It's compelling you to do it. It's saying, concentrate internally. Where everything slows down, everything is still, everything is calm, everything is peaceful internally. So it's Saturn, the power of Saturn, that brings the solution. Like every planetary energy, by the way, they don't create the problem. Our ego creates the problem, but they're the solution. Their energy is the true energy of our nature. Our nature is truly silent and ready to connect with that silence and stillness. That's our true nature. But our ego doesn't know anything about silence. And again, our nature is timeless. But our ego doesn't know anything about timeless. Our ego is time, past and future. So we take that stillness and that timelessness of Saturn and turn it into stress, worry, shame, guilt. Meanwhile, Saturn is there destroying all of that externally, saying, see, you're never going to control any of this. You have no control over any of it. It's all disappearing. It's going to kill you one day. Are you going to wake up? Come on, wake up, look inside, be silent. Please. And we don't. We're just stress. So all these planets now in Capricorn is just saying, come on. And how does it do it? It just jacks up the pressure. Saturn is the best. All of them are great. Saturn is awesome, though, in that it just... Now we got all these planets in Capricorn. It's like, you think you were stressed before? How about this? Brings it all down and says, come on. Now we even got the new moon there, right? As if it wasn't enough. Look at that. We got the new moon there, Saturn, Jupiter, Venus. Actually, let me do this. Let me even show you here. and I don't generally even do it, but if we go and look, we'll bring Pluto in. We even got Pluto there. Pluto, right? Pluto is even there. For those of you who, neo-Vedic astrologers who rely way too much on outer planets, Pluto is even there. Pluto, yay! You love Pluto. So, but it's all good. So I'll take him away. All right. So, but all these planets, Saturn, Jupiter, Venus, Mercury, Moon, Sun, they're all here in Capricorn, and Mars is up here in Aries. So every planet except Mars and the nodes, and again, the nodes would be outside of this, but every planet here is in Capricorn right now. So, again, all this Capricorn energy, these consequences, right? Like, here is what all of those things that you were believing in, again, because Capricorn comes after Sagittarius, right? Comes after Sagittarius. And so again, Sagittarius is about our beliefs and our philosophies. And again, our beliefs also revolve around those religious figures and leaders that we follow and the philosophies that they espouse that we believe in and that we follow. Of course, that includes political figures, spiritual figures, or whatever. So having those planets moving on from Sagittarius into Capricorn, this is what Capricorn is about. So you can't really understand one sign without understanding the sign before it or whatnot. It's a continuum. So Capricorn is really there to shatter all of our beliefs about things and test them. Again, all of these beliefs that we have about a thing or a person, they have to stand the test of time. And again, Capricorn and Saturn are the test of time. And time is going to shatter all of our illusions and smash, again, whether they're outer or inner. Our illusions are going to have to get shattered if we're going to come back to the self. So again, these are huge lessons right now. And I see everybody, I'm looking at the comments, everyone's like, outer planets, everyone loves it. And it's great. Actually, I've done quite a bit. Outer planets are fine. I was just kind of making a joke, but they're not a part of Indian astrology. They're not a part of Vedic astrology because Vedic astrology uses the visible planets. I know people say, oh, you can see Uranus sometimes. It's not the same thing. Plus, all of the rulerships, the classical rulerships, also correspond with the chakras and all of this. So again, there's nothing wrong with using them. I was making a joke, though, and I'll repeat it. And I know some people don't like when I say this, and I'm not trying to be rude about anything, but it's actually just an observable fact that I've seen so many times with neo-Vedic astrologers who use outer planets. Frankly, they use them too much. And they tend to go right to outer planets, just like a Western astrologer would do. They use them too much as far as I'm concerned. You should be able to do Vedic astrology without outer planets, frankly. You should be able to. And then they can enhance things, for sure. Particularly generational or otherwise. And again, people can do whatever they want. I'm just saying, though, when you see someone using Vedic astrology, and particularly if they're not really sound on the fundamentals of like using the harmonic charts and how the yogas work and the dashas and all the timing and whatnot, but they're constantly talking about outer planets, that's what I'm saying. And it's a little bit of a joke. I don't mean anything personal, but it's noticeable to those who really study it in the pure form and then see where it's obviously it was a Western astrologer who is still kind of doing Western astrology with some Vedic stuff thrown in there. So anyway, it's a little bit of a joke, but it's no big deal. I don't mean to be rude, but it's definitely something that if you are doing Vedic astrology, you should try to learn it correctly. And I'm going to say it like that. Correctly means it was practiced a certain way. Started in 400 AD. And by the way, it's the same. It's Western astrology too. People talk about the Greeks and the Persians and all this. The fundamentals of both both astrology practices was done long before outer planets were even discovered. And frankly, if you can't do astrology without outer planets, you're probably kind of a little bit lazy. Because again, the foundations of both systems were established long before outer planets. And I mean the foundations that still need to be in use now, which includes all the house systems, the rulerships, all of this stuff that makes it a science was done way before outer planets. Outer planets were just added to that. So like a lot of things, it's gotten kind of codified. And I'm sort of talking about it this way. It's relevant because, again, this is also, there are consequences to these kinds of things. And this is a very Saturn kind of thing, a very Saturn, Capricorn. And again, Pluto is there. We'll talk about it. And again, I don't mean it anything personal to be personally insulting, because I like a lot of work that all my astrologer friends do. But it's also just a fact. And it's one of the things that are maybe a little confounding about me. Some people don't like, but I'm Gemini. I have to see it the way I see it. And I really think, as a matter of practice and as a matter of course, and by the way, I walk the talk, that people should learn this stuff correctly. Correctly, we do have a standard of what's correct. We do know. Everything is not just what anybody wants to make up. Now, again, that doesn't mean that people can't help others using an astrology practice that's based on a hybridized version of both. All of that, that's a different equation, right? We can help each other without doing astrology at all. We can just start saying stuff. I'm saying, though, if you're doing astrology properly, learn what's one of the things that one of the reasons why the sciences have degraded is because people don't learn it properly. They don't learn it correctly. And it winds up being, if you wind up sort of sloshing together all the parameters before you've actually learned it correctly, then it winds up being in sort of disarray and in chaos. And that goes with a lot of things. So again, I'm not just going on a riff here. This is also very much Capricorn energy. And these kinds of things are up right now for all of us. And the things that I was talking about before, about how the consequences even of things that you believe, like this, things that you're trying to practice, the consequences bearing down. Let's say, again, especially Capricorn coming after Sagittarius, all these beliefs that you have, maybe that you're spiritual or I'm spiritual, or this inspires me and this and that. And now what happens is when all this pressure comes, that's when we have to put it into practice. We can have a lot of beliefs about things, which is Sagittarius. I believe this, it inspires me. But that left. Now it's all these planets in Capricorn, which is saying, okay, what are you putting into practice? Now that you got the pressure of time bearing down on you, and your fears and your triggers and your guilt and your shame and your stress and worry, I'm going to die, I don't have money, what's going on, COVID, this, that, what. Now you don't even know how spiritual you are until you have to practice it. It's easy to think we're spiritual when nothing's at stake, when there's no pressure. But it's not until we get pressure that we reveal the truth. It takes pressure to reveal the truth. Pressure reveals the truth. It doesn't obscure it. And this is also where we're totally confused often. Well, I'm just so stressed out I can't concentrate on being spiritual. Oh, no. That's not how it works. The pressure reveals the spirituality. The pressure reveals the truth. It doesn't obscure the truth. It reveals the truth. You might hear me say these things a lot where I talk about, people will say, well, I understand it, but I just can't explain it. For example, when they're talking about astrology, and I use this example where people gather a lot of information about astrology and then they think they're understanding it. They think they comprehend it. And I'll say, okay, well, explain it to me. And they're like, well, I can't really explain it, but I understand it. No. If you can't explain it, you don't understand it. And that's the same principle, because asking someone to explain it is putting the pressure on them to now come up with it. Okay, if you understand it, explain it to me. Well, then suddenly once that pressure is on them, they're like, I don't know what to say. The pressure reveals the truth. It doesn't hide the truth. And so, but we tend to think very differently. We tend to think, oh, I'm spiritual, but now I'm just so worried about money. I'm so worried about this. Well, that's your level of your spiritual growth. That's how spiritual you are. You're only as spiritual as the pressure you can handle. It's not hiding it, it's revealing it. Right? So again, there are people in the midst of all of this, there are people in the midst of all of these changes that have been happening where these are the best times of their life, because all this pressure has revealed their greatness. They've had to be like, and I'm talking about things like the lockdowns and the constrictions that we've seen. For many people, what it's done is it's removed a lot of distractions and distracting engagements. And now they've just had to really concentrate, let's say, on this thing or that thing. And that level of concentration has revealed their greatness. And to others, it's been something very different. And so every situation is divine in that sense. And what astrology does is it shows us what's the divine potential. What is the divine potential in this thing? And I said it last year when COVID started that we're going to be dealing with this for a couple years. With Saturn going through Capricorn, we're going through a huge shift on all different levels. Levels that have to do with our time, for example, and work. And we're going to be able to get a lot of our time back because businesses are going to change. Rather than having to go into these buildings, we can work remotely. So we're going to get a lot of our time back. It's also going to show the pressure on certain industries that maybe need to be changed, like a lot of the travel industries. It's also going to show, for example, like restaurants and these other industries that have been hit really hard are going to be pressured. It's also going to reveal some of our terrible patterns of consumption and eating meat and eating animals and all this. All of these things have started to shift. And again, we're still on the cusp of a lot of breakthroughs, and we're all getting tired of what could be considered, lockdowns and COVID, and our paranoia can be running away with us. But in the midst of all of that, there's still enormous amount of changing of our values, a shifting in our relationship with the earth, with nature, all of that being revealed culturally, but also personally. And I'm talking about this more personally now because that's how that's how each of us experience it. We're all experiencing some version of this, including me. I've been alone. I don't have partner or anything. I go out and I play tennis and I go out and engage a little bit, but it's hard to be, I'm feeling this pressure and I don't know. I don't really get lonely, like loneliness kind of thing, because I've spent a lot of time alone. I don't mind that part of it as much, but certainly without a partner or without, certain sacrifices or other things. But it's also revealed enormous benefit and contribution in other ways. So all this bearing down on us right now is really showing. And this next 30-day cycle is really a time to, dial things in and dial things in and really reconnect with that stillness and that peace and that solitude that's easy to be getting away from now. And I just want to also say this, that I did 2021 forecast where, for the most part, I said, and I'm sticking to it, and I think it's going to be showing itself, and it's already showing these signs of what I said, that it's going to start pretty rough, pretty intense with these times we're seeing right now, with all these planets going through Capricorn. But in a couple months, Jupiter's going to move into Aquarius. These planets are going to move forward, and we're going to be seeing a big shift. There's an enormous wave of hope right around the corner. I've been saying this since the end of last year, and I know I'm one of the only astrologers saying it. So many of my colleagues, it's just like gloom and doom for 2021 again. I've been saying exactly the opposite now for months. And again, I think so many people just want to believe it's going to keep being gloom and doom, mainly because they also have these these social and political views that everything is gloom and doom and that it's all big conspiracies and all of these things that people just seem to want to keep believing in. And again, I'm sorry to see people who want to keep believing in this stuff, but there's only so much anybody can do about that. For the rest of us, there are great waves of progress and inspiration and hope and a new chapter ahead. Personally, I'm modeling that. That's how I see it. That's how I've felt it. That's how I keep talking about it. It bothers me to see colleagues who keep wanting to hang on to some gloom and doom, paranoid, end of the world scenario. But again, that's part of it as well, if that's what they want to do. But again, I'm saying this because, it might feel intense right now with all these planets in Capricorn. And, but again, by this time next month, these planets will move out of Capricorn. They're going to start moving. Jupiter goes into Aquarius. We have exalted Venus. We have some really excellent Mercury retrograde cycles this year. The nodes are still exalted. We're working through a lot of stuff and a lot of difficulty of the last few years, but it's on the ascent. So the other thing I want to talk about, though, with this is the Nakshatra of Dhanishta. And Dhanishta is related to Lord Shiva's drum, which is the Damaru, or the drum of creation. And that Damaru, or that drum of creation, is, Lord Shiva as Nataraj is the great cosmic dancer. Hang on, let me take a quick drink here. And as the cosmic dancer, he's dancing into creation and destruction. He's dancing things into birth and death, creation and destruction. Again, very Saturn-like energy. And again, once you understand this connection to the cosmos, and especially that the zodiac, the sidereal integrity of the zodiac, and you understand that the nakshatras line up from Ashwini all the way around, and that by the time we get to, 2320 of Capricorn to 640 of Aquarius, we have this section of the sky called Dhanishta. Then you understand that it has that quality of Saturn and Shiva as this birth of creation and destruction, which has a lot to do with that Nataraj entity. And that Nataraja is a great is a great symbol of that dance of creation and destruction. And again, it's very Saturn-like to have that. Let me pull up images of Nataraj to really show this this image. And you can see one of the images that Nataraja has. He has in one of his hands, he has a drum. You see it right here is the drum. You see it here in this one too. This is that very famous picture of the dancing Shiva, right? He's got the drum up there. He's making a bunch of mudras. Here's an interesting one where you have let me make this bigger, where you see a small drum. Damaru symbolizes the rhythmic vibration of the creation Om. So he's dancing the universe into existence. The Naga snake coils 3 times around his neck. So he's got a serpent around his neck. Arms and legs honor the duality. So you can see he's in perfect balance. The Abhaya Mudra, saying, I won't hurt you. You can come. He's also crushing the malevolent dwarf called Tridura Moilaka, symbolic of overcoming darkness and ignorance. So he's crushing ignorance. The flame of fire symbolizing destruction. The Ganga flows through his hair. The crescent moon is the time cycle through which creation unfolds. So the symbol of Nataraja, the king of the cosmic dance, is huge. And so, again, this is a very powerful symbol of this nakshatra of Dhanishta, because the symbol is that Damaru, that drum of creation. And again, you can see it exists equidistant between these two signs that are ruled by Saturn. And again, Shiva is really very much symbolic of Saturn energy, because Shiva is the yogi in meditation by himself, in a deep, sort of trance, you would say, but not trance. He's tuned in to that cosmic vibration. And again, so that really powerful deity to worship around this time is Lord Shiva. And in fact, next month, when we have the Krishna Chaturdashi of next month, is called Mahashivaratri. So we also know that this is really the time to worship Shiva, when the sun is going through this section of the sky, when we're in this part of our orbit, because the celebration of Lord Shiva, the great night of Shiva, happens when the sun is in these signs between Capricorn and Aquarius. Usually when the sun's in Aquarius, that's when it happens. Pretty much always. But again, this is the time to really introspect and be inward, and to withdraw our sense of control from the outer world and bring it to the inner world, to our inner mind and our inner life. And again, Saturn is very much about control and our illusion of control, and trying to control things that are bigger than us. And when we do that, we realize we feel how out of control we are. And it's that feeling of being out of control that creates the stress. So you want to understand, when I explain astrological concepts, I try to bring them down to that core essence, which is the reason Saturn feels stressful. It's not because Saturn is a bad one. And again, these awful teachings that have crept in, and astrologers teach it like, well, Saturn's a bad one. It's not a bad one. They're all good ones. They're all divine. The reason it can feel hard to us is because we're immature, because we assert this outer control. We try to control outer circumstances, and that creates stress. Why? Because we're not in control. The only thing we can control is the moment and the timelessness. We can't control what happens in time. We can't control what happens in time. We can't control what already happened in the past. It's already done. And we can't control what's going to happen in the future. We have no control over it. But we have total control over now and our own mind. And in fact, no matter what happens externally, we always have control over that. Not only do we have control, we must control it. That's why we're here. We're here to learn to control the mind, control the senses. And again, even this word control seems to affect some people really badly. It shouldn't. You're trying to control everything. Admit it. Admit it to yourself. You're a crazy control freak. Admit it. You want absolute control over everything. Admit it. Stop acting like you're spiritual and, I just like to let everything happen. Bullshit. Excuse my language. No, you don't. You want to control everything. Right? And you can't control anything. And it drives you crazy. Right? So the only thing you can control is the moment. And you must control it. And if you don't control it, it will control you with your stresses and worries and fears and ideas and and it's the easiest thing in the world to control the moment. You know why? Because all you need to do is go inward, because your reality is the moment. The reality is you are the fullness of the moment. And this is why all spiritual practices are about activating that purity of Saturn energy, of going inward. The way it feels to us, though, at first, is facing our fears, because we're afraid of all of those things that we've not been able to control, or all that stress. So you learn a meditation practice. You learn how to do it at first. You need to develop a method, just like anything else. So again, meditation techniques are easy. They start with things like your breath, because your body is always breathing. You just close the eyes and just follow the breath. It's the simplest thing in the world, the simplest thing ever. Every animal knows how to meditate naturally. Watch a cat, watch a dog, watch any animal. They just sit there and meditate all the time, totally at peace. You just emulate them. You just breathe, you relax, and you give up the illusion that you have any control over what's external. Give it up. You don't have it. You never will. You never did. Forgive everybody who did this stuff to you. They were crazy just like you are. They had no control of themselves just like you don't have any control of yourself. Forget it. Now, again, don't bypass it. You need to process the grief and all that stuff, of course, whatever. But in the moment, again, this is the stuff we get hung up on, though. Because now we also live in a Western kind of therapy model where even saying that, well, but you gotta process all that grief. Okay, whatever. Go process the grief. But when you want to try to meditate, let all of that go. But I'm serious though. What happens when people are trying to meditate is that stuff comes up, and then they're working through this, and we get stuck on that level. So yes, the way to do it is to just keep relaxing. It's a process. It takes a while. And you just keep relaxing, surrendering. This is why surrender, let go. Again, that's the dharmic way that it happens. But what will also happen is Saturn will come at different times and crush you, whether you want it to or not. And again, these times right now can be very much like that. Because when Saturn makes transits like over the moon or goes over other planets, it's going to do that to you whether you want it to or not. And what typically happens is we just get freaked out and we get so pressurized that at some point we just sort of collapse and it crushes us. And it will crush us underneath the weight of all of that. But it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to arrive that way. The silence doesn't have to come after being crushed and pulverized. It can come naturally, particularly at times like this, where there's so much Saturn energy and so much Capricorn energy already happening. There's so much of it right now that it's very easy to tune in to just that real, pure, simple thing. Just like how simple and beautiful it is to just follow the breath. Man, if you can't do that, if you've never done it, you're missing. It's everything. It's the most joyful thing ever. It's totally tapped in to the bliss of the soul. Satchidananda, your true nature, is utterly blissful and beyond all of this. But you don't encounter it until there's stillness and silence in the mind, until you've let go of that pressure of time. So I just want to also let there is these 30-minute tune-ups just real quick, because I'll say it again here. I just put the link there. If someone did want me to look at their chart for 2021, again, big stuff happening. Again, obviously all those Saturn transits that I was just talking about, this stuff is big right now for people. Talking about where things go from here, the readings that I'm doing now, a lot of it, because I'm doing them now, I'm sort of taking people from, okay, this is why you're feeling this now, but things are going to be moving forward. So kind of taking people through into the next part of 2021. And again, especially as it lines up with their dashas and whatnot, it's big to really get some guidance now if you think that can help you. And again, give it a couple weeks. But as I said, and I also want people to know that, as I've already said, 2021 is really going to be, we have some powerful stuff around the corner. Again, these planets are going to move out of here, and eventually, Mars is going to leave Aries. It's in Aries now, which is very intense. It's going to move into Taurus, so a lot of the intensity will calm down. These eclipses, the nodes are exalted. We have some pretty strong Mercury retrograde cycles in positive signs. And again, Jupiter is going to be moving out and going into Aquarius. And then the next year he's going to be in Pisces. So again, we're on the ascent here. And so you should see it that way, and realize that even though things are intense right now, there's also enormous power in these times, especially to really tune in to something that is beyond just the stress of the world and how hard, difficult everything seems, and all that stuff. And again, we're kind of bringing in the next sort of paradigm. The thing that I said, and it also really sort of runs parallel with this nakshatra of Dhanishta as well. Dhan means wealth. And, one of the things that when we look at Shiva and we look at wealth, you might think, well, Shiva's the yogi. What does it have to do with wealth? Because it actually has to do with value and values. And again, the greatest wealth you'll ever have in your life is that peace of mind. It's the only wealth that ever matters. My guru Amma says meditation is more precious than gold. You can have gold and it'll buy you stuff and it can be in the bank and you feel safe and you feel a sort of hedge against the difficulty, but you're still going to feel stressed because there's no control over what's going to happen, what's inevitable. But meditation and stillness and silence and peace and simplicity of the moment and the beauty of the moment will never leave you. Even if you meditate for a while and then you forget or whatever, when you go back to it, you can easily pick up where you left off. And you can easily fall into that place of stillness and peace. And I don't care what happens, peace of mind is really the highest value in life. Nothing else flows until that's established. And so now is such a great time, even for simplistic meditations. It doesn't need to be complicated. Very simple, like mindfulness meditations. Thich Nhat Hanh, who was a great Buddhist monk, has some great books. One's called The Miracle of Mindfulness, which is just about being mindful. A mindfulness practice is great right now. Simplify things. Because again, all this Saturn pressure can feel overwhelming, like there's so much going on. There's this and there's that and there's COVID and this and politics and this and that. And we complicate everything and nothing is that complicated. And none of it is in our control. Is it any wonder we're so stressed? If you're thinking this external world is going to make you feel relaxed, it never was going to. It was never going to work out the way we imagined anyway. But now it's so exacerbated and so magnified that it's easy on some level to kind of recognize it, but go, all right, I get it. I have no control, no idea over what's going on. Let the people that signed up for that, let them handle that. There are people and politicians and judges and lawyers and people, they signed up to handle all that. I'm going to handle this. I'm going to handle what I signed up to handle. And being mindful, returning to a mindfulness practice where it's just about being present. The simplest meditation technique in the world is to just, again, be present, mindful, and follow your breath all the time. Your body is always breathing. Right now, your body is breathing. You can listen to me and still live your life and still focus on your breath. It takes a little practice at first, but after a while, you develop a dual focus of awareness where you're still present to what's going on and you're present to your breath and the stillness that is behind the breath. It's impossible to be present and not be still. When you're present, you're silent. Silence and presence are the same thing. They're not even separate. There's not any gap between presence and silence. Again, these are all Saturn virtues, Capricorn virtues. And all these planets in Capricorn now are all going, be silent, be silent, be silent, 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 silent. Or stress, 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 stress. One or the other. So many. Even one planet there is going to be saying that, but now they're all there. So it's saying, You're either absolutely unsilent and noisy and loud in your mind and stressed, or you could be just as silent, right? So, anyway, that's the big part of this next 30 days is this Capricorn energy is really bringing that potential to notice all of the intensity and to, again, reflect on all the things you're trying to control and all those things that are bigger than you, where you feel that stress. That same energy very easily shifts into presence and mindfulness. Because it's the same energy. It's the same energy. They're both Saturn. They're both Capricorn and Saturn. And so now it's very easy to shift that focus into something that's much more still, much more mindful, and much more compassionate and forgiving. And that's another big part of this. And I think one of the biggest things we get stuck on when I do readings for people or I talk to people, so much of what has them still stuck is they're still hanging on to the past and the resentments, either because they're angry and resentful of the things that happened to them, or they're just still in the story, maybe the things that happened to them or things they've done, the guilt about the mistakes they've made, or the frustration and anger at the things that were done to them. And the more we're still burdened with that, the more worried we are about the future, or when we sit down to try to meditate or to try to concentrate, that's what comes up. That stuff comes up. Sit down to meditate, and again, if you're trying to be still, then as soon as you start getting stillness is there, but then what's right behind it is anger and frustration and worry and pain about what happened to me, and we're still in all that story. And again, people need therapy or other kinds of things to help work through that. And I don't do that. So, and I don't minimize that either. And I'm not trying to minimize it. But I know for myself, what really helped is to just keep going through it, keep breathing, keep staying present. That stuff is there. That's the mind. That's the experience. That's the consciousness. That's the karma. And I think obviously it's very valuable to get therapy about certain things that we're stuck with that we can't bypass. But in the moment, whether we've had therapy or not, we can still sink deeper and still feel compassion. Because I know what happened with me in my experiences is when I first started to wake up a long time ago, I had those same things there, but stillness and silence and peace revealed the truth of that stuff as well, and showed that that even though I was treated very badly, abused, and all of that stuff, it was very easy to have natural empathy and compassion once I connected to that stillness and empathy and compassion in myself. Then being empathetic and compassionate to those confused, crazy people that did the things to me that they did was not even hard. It wasn't even a leap. It was like simultaneous. It was like, okay, that's what happened. Okay, there you go. It didn't make it go away. I still feel that stuff today, and I'm still been molded by those things. But again, you got to start somewhere with something. And right now, the benefit is in this, and the power is in this way of seeing things. Connect with the present, go deep into the silence and stillness. So I hope this was helpful for people. Share it with others if you think it was valuable. Again, share it in your Facebook and on your YouTube or other places. And I appreciate everyone watching this today.